Excuse me.
You know, you look like your head fell in the cheese dip back in 1957. You're okay. This one, real fucking ugly.
Back before they bit the dust, THQ was the publisher for all these Saints Row games. In early 2012, just a few short months after Saints Row 3 came out, there were a lot of rumors popping around the internet that THQ, money-wise, wasn't looking so hot. Not long after that, these rumors were revealed to be true, and it basically became common knowledge amongst the whole gaming community that THQ's demise would be sooner than later. Despite the underwhelming nature of Saints Row III, in my personal opinion, it did very well both commercially and critically. Not enough to save THQ, but it was a good effort. On April Fool's Day of 2012, Volition made a joke announcement for an expansion pack for Saints Row III, called Enter the Dominatrix. This expansion pack would involve the boss getting superpowers, which sounded awesome to some and downright stupid to others. Well, due to THQ's impending doom, they strongly enforced Volition to turn this fake expansion pack idea into an actual product to push out one last attempt to pay for THQ's life support. The original plot for Saints Row 4 was scrapped and replaced with this whole new idea based around superpowers. Unfortunately for THQ, they filed for bankruptcy before the game was finished, and this was followed by Volition and Saints Row being sold to Koch Media, Saints Row 4 being published by Deep Silver in mid-2013. After saving the world from a nuclear terrorist attack, the boss is elected President of the United States. Soon after, aliens invade planet Earth and kidnap the Saints. Let me remind you that Volition's intention for Saints Row 1 was to make the experience as close and as genuine to being in a real street gang. Not only is the boss the leader of the free world in Saints Row 4, but he's abducted by goddamn aliens. Alright, let me make this more relatable. Imagine that you have played GTA 3, Vice City, and San Andreas, and that's it. And you love these three games. You think they're awesome, there's so much content packed in, and they have a really good tone. And then all of a sudden they make a Grand Theft Auto game that has a complete shift in tone, but it's still a good game, so you give it a pass. And then they make one with goddamn aliens in it. Wait a minute, they already did that. Okay, you get it then. Anyway, after being abducted by aliens, the boss basically wakes up in a 50s sitcom version of Steelport. After all hell breaks loose, it's revealed that he's actually in a simulation, his real body being on an alien ship. He's quickly dropped into the modern simulation of Steelport, and you are given some very fun superpowers to toy around with.
Ooh, this feels badass!
Gangster or not, you can't deny that these superpowers are very fun to use. You have super speed, you can leap several stories into the air, and there's a variety of super attacks such as the Freeze Blast or the Super Stomp. Done using the word super. The rest of the plot is basically just the boss helping the crew escape their simulations and taking down the alien army known as the Zin. Zinyak is our main villain this time, and he's surprisingly likable.
Why do you humans enjoy leaping so much? Get off my lawn, you son of a bitch!
Besides the fact that he blew up the Earth. By now, Volition was aware that their fanbase was split in two groups. One group liking the old Saints Row, and one group liking the new Saints Row. So they tried their best to please both sides by keeping the silly nature of the third, but having some callbacks to previous games. You even get to visit Stillwater again for a couple missions, even if it looks nothing like the original. Speaking of callbacks, Volition attempts to rewrite their wrongs by bringing Johnny Gat back from the grave. Before saving him, you fight alongside him in an obvious homage to Streets of Rage. The boss even gets his own sprite, no matter how you dress him. Anyway, this is how Gat's off-screen death is explained.
Johnny, we're about to jump!
Right on! I'll see you in Stillwater!
Rather. It would seem your reputation doesn't do you justice.
Earth's most passant warrior?
That's what he called me.
You're telling me he abducted you years before his invasion because he thought you single-handedly could stop him?
Yeah.
That's so fucking awesome.
I'd say they did a fine job fixing their mistake, but it doesn't change the fact that killing him off in the first place was a meaningless and dumb decision. Keith David is now a member of the Saints for some reason, not really sure why, but whatever. The late great Roddy Piper also makes an appearance, resulting in a not-so-subtle homage to They Live, a film that both Roddy and Keith David starred in. Good movie though, check it out.
Oh, man, I'm sorry, man.
Ben King from Saints Row 1 returns, voiced by Terry Crews this time. He doesn't really act or sound like the original Ben King at all.
We have a country to run. Fun isn't part of the equation.
The campaign as a whole is pretty good. It's a love letter to itself. It may not be Saints Row, but at least it isn't stale. It can get a little repetitive at times, but I think for the most part, Volition did a good job in switching up the gameplay frequently. It's a fun, solid campaign. If you want mindless fun, even with the sacrifice of a serious story, Saints Row 4 is the game to pick up. Is playing the game still fun after the campaign? Well, not as much as Saints Row 2 was, but after the campaign, I'd say you got at least a good 15 hours of fun left. Steelport is more or less the same. Still stale and ugly as before, but it could have been any map with this fun gameplay and it would have been fine. My biggest complaint is that obviously there's no new map, and this map isn't based around superpowers, and sometimes that shows. You only spend about 20 minutes of the game in a car before getting your super speed, essentially making all vehicles obsolete after that. The character creator this time around is almost the same as Saints Row 3's, there's just more option in terms of clothing and hairstyles, and the graphics are a little bit better. In the end, you kill Zinyak and rule what's left of humanity, which is just a handful of people due to the Earth being blown up. Although nowhere near the quality of Saints Row 2, Saints Row 4 is a step up from the third. My biggest complaint is that this just isn't Saints Row anymore. But if you look at the game as a standalone product, it's a solid game and a fun experience. 7.5 out of 10.